Today I'm going to show you how I built this awesome utility cart for under $30. Let's begin. Now for this project, I'm just going to use a standard 2x4. I looked through my pile and picked out the one that was the straightest and with the fewest amount of knots. Yes, I know that can be a challenge with 2x4s, but just do the best you can. Now I brought the 2x4 over to my table saw and I'm going to rip down as many 1/2 inch strips as possible. After ripping them down, I came up with 5 strips that are 1/2 inch thick and one that's about 3/8, maybe just a little less than 3/8 inch thick. And that's not surprising because with each cut we eliminated some of the wood because of the blade cutting it, so that's why this is a little bit narrower. Now this is a little bit less than ideal than what I wanted, but that's okay, I'm still going to try and incorporate it. Now with those strips cut, I want to start working on the legs, which I want to be about 30 inches tall. And with these strips only being a 1/2 inch thick, I'm actually going to assemble them in an L shape, just like this, to give them some additional strength. And to cut these down quickly, I'm just going to use the miter saw. Now I have a bunch of fiber sticking up on the edge of all these pieces I just cut. I'm just going to gently go over it with some sandpaper just to knock those off so I don't get any splinters, but I don't want to sand down those corners. I want those still to be nice and sharp. Now I've matched up the boards together so that we have certain ones, like this one doesn't have hardly any knots and this one has a few, so we're going to team them together to give them the most strength. And when both of the boards still have knots, I'm just offsetting those so there's not any major weak points. And then it's time to glue them together. Now that I have this clamped up, I'm going to add some brad nails in between each of these. That way I can remove these clamps and it'll still stay nice and tight. Now while those legs are drying, I want to see if I can construct one of the trays for this cart. And to do that, I want the width of the cart to be about 2 feet and the length to be about 3 feet. So I believe I'm going to take another one of those strips. We're going to cut out 2 at 23 inches and 2 at 35 inches. To construct these tray frames, I'm going to use the 23 incher on the outside and put the 35 to the inside, about like so. We're going to add some glue and then I'll make sure everything is nice and square. Then I'll probably just take my brad nailer, add a couple nails to hold it in place. Right now this joint is not very strong, but once I get the leg frame around it, it'll give it a lot more strength. There's one tray frame done and I want to make at least 3 trays for this cart, so I gotta make at least 2 more of these. After building the first 3, I realized these will support the trays, but I wanted to have a little ledge or a little lip that goes around each one so things don't go rolling out. So I end up building a total of 6. Looking back at the legs, I have a little glue squeeze out on the outside and the inside of a few places. I'm just take a chisel and go over this just to make it look a little bit better. Now with the legs and the tray frames ready, I need to assemble this on a flat surface. Now I'm going to do that on top of my table saw because I know it is flat. Now I put some plastic down to keep glue and any other kind of moisture off of the metal and hopefully prevent any scratches. Wherever I have 2 pieces coming together in a seam, I'm going to try and attach a solid piece of wood over each of those pieces. That way it'll have some additional strength in those corners. While the glue is drying on these legs, I want to get and start creating the actual shelf. And to do that, I can do it a couple ways. First, I could take some plywood, cut it out to size, but right now plywood is kind of expensive. And I'm thinking another way to actually cut down on costs is maybe just to cut down some more 2x4s like we've been doing. But instead of 1/2 inch thick, probably 1/4 inch thick. I believe that'll allow me to have a nice little layer going across each of these shelves and still provide plenty of strength and yet keep it nice and inexpensive. After ripping the 2x4s into 1/4 inch strips, I ended up with 9 pieces per 2x4. So I have a total of 18 strips because I ripped down 2 of them. That should give me just enough planks to create these shelves. To get the planks to fit across the shelf, we need to cut them down to just slightly under the full width. Now these are right at 23 inches. And that would be just too tight if I tried to cut all of the planks into exactly 23. So I'm actually going to cut them down about 1/8 of an inch shy. Now when I go to install these 1/4 inch strips into place, I have to take in consideration wood movement. If I was dealing with just plywood, it wouldn't be as big of a concern, or if I was just dealing with say 2 or 3 of these planks side by side, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But considering I'm going to need about 24 planks, I have to definitely take that in mind. So I believe I'm going to leave all these pieces just independently loose within the frame. And to do that, I want to add another support bar or another piece of frame right here in the middle just to give it some more strength. And to make that center frame support, I still have some 1/2 inch strips that I ripped down earlier. So I'm going to actually glue 2 of them together, and that'll give me a nice inch thick piece, and I'll secure that in the center. With all these laid out, you can see there's still a little bit of room to slide side to side, so expansion and contraction should not be a problem, but it's still plenty of surface area around the sides and down the middle to give it plenty of strength. Now that we have all the pieces in place for the lower shelf, I want to hold it down and create that little lip that goes around the edge. So we're going to add another one of these little frames right here in place. Now that I have the top piece in place, I don't want to glue it in the corners just in case there's some extra expansion and contraction going on. So I'm just going to add some brad nails in each side. In the process of going with the strips of wood over to plywood, I discovered I had a slight issue. Right here on the side, the wood can actually still come in and out and thus fall out or just get knocked out over time. Fortunately, I still have some wood left over. I can cut some strips down and I can just do a strip of wood over the side here. And that actually can be an extra benefit to this, because if any of these strips that are in here ever do get broken, I can just remove that added side strip and I can replace those boards individually. And with the bottom shelf finally complete, I just have to repeat the process in the middle and on the top. The trays are now complete, but this is a utility cart and there's always a chance I might, accidentally overload some of these. So I wanted to add some additional support by adding just some scrap wood. This is the 1/2 inch cut ones that I had left over. And then add it just under each corner of the tray to the legs. And I'm just going to glue it and add some brad nails to hold it in place. And then I'll add some additional support just in case it happens. Next up, I want to add a handle to the end to make this a little bit more controllable. Now, I'm just going to use some more of the scrap leftovers that I had. These are both 1/2 inch, and I'm going to add those to the frame support that's here, and that should give me about 1.5 inches of clearance for my hand to fit in there. And once those are secured in place, I'll just add a handle to those. Now we need to get some casters for this cart. And the cheapest way I can still find some heavy duty casters is actually the dollies from Harbor Freight. These cost, I believe, around $10 now. And this is actually an older version, but the casters are still good on it, so I'm going to salvage it from this. I'll flip the cart onto its side so you can kind of get an idea of where these casters are going to go. If I put them right to the end though, I'm going to have some overhang on 2 sides and that's not going to look good. So we're going to try and move it inward just a little bit. But to do that, I'm going to have to add some wood in here. Fortunately, some of the wood that comes on a dolly is a hardwood, so I'm actually going to try and utilize that for the casters. In a moment of truth, let's see if we can get this thing down without dropping it. Whew, all right. The casters seem to be a little bit stiff, I'm guessing because they're old, so I'm using white lithium grease and that should definitely help. Much better. Now this cart is looking great, but I wanted to see if I could get it to stand out or maybe just pop just a little bit more. So what I was thinking is these vertical legs, the uprights, is to paint those black, including the handle, and then the little pieces that go along the side here that hold the slats in place, keep them from falling out, paint those black as well. And I think leave everything else just natural wood and this thing would really, really stand out. And there we have it. A few black accents in a key locations really make this cart stand out and just pop. I hope to use this for a very long time. Now let me go back. Just in case you were wondering, I used a total of 5 2x4s and 1 Harbor Freight dolly to make this setup. 3 of the 2x4s got ripped down into 1/2 inch strips and 2 of them got ripped down into 1/4 inch strips. So I hope you enjoyed this project. If you think of any other ideas that may go along or just improve on this, let me know down in the comments. I'd really like to hear about that. Otherwise, I hope you get a chance to build one.